Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here today. Hope you're going to tune in today, and if you are, we're just going to wrap up the program we're working on the last few days with some SUV concept sketches, and I just thought we'd bring this back to our remembrance from yesterday's stream. I just put together a couple of concept sketches. This is the final one that we did, and the reason I brought it back, I just want to stress a point here about what we talked about over the last couple of days about the basic drawing skills for black and white line weight and get into a study such as like the one you're looking at here. It really illustrates the importance of getting into a real good strong drawing using perspective, line weight, form, shape, etc., some detailing and all the elements we've been talking about over the last couple of days. But I think the most important part of it is notice how much paper is coming through on this thing. It's not an awful, hey Chip, how are you? Welcome aboard, thank you. A little review here just before we get started in the final study, but I think I really stressed in the 2 days hence, both Tuesday and Wednesday, about the importance of getting a really good strong perspective and then working with line weight and letting the paper come through. And again, notice how there's very little concentration of tone and so forth in this sketch. There's a lot of open space, a lot of paper, letting the sketch breathe. I think that's the thing I want to accomplish with these studies, and when I move into the color study, we're going to do the same thing. We use this as a footprint or a battle plan to get into a color study. So what I've done ahead of time here, just a little bit of review. This is the final sketch we're going to select to go into a little bit of a color study with. So there it is. Now I went back and just redrew it and did some little adjustments here in terms of some of the things, like opened up the backlight just a little bit more, changed some of the structure up front, just to kind of tune it a little bit, add a little more definition to the wheels, and keeping it nice and fluid, a little bit more of a hood detail. But I think the essence of it is, notice just in the interest of time as well, put a little bit of a pastel background into it, like a pastel wash with a Weeble pad. We'll show how that works in a few moments here. And also just some detail things, little fussy parts like getting the wheel well squared away and some tire definition. And from there we'll go take it into a little bit of a marker, pastel, and some drawing technique to finish it all up. So let's get it started here. And I think the whole thing I want to really concentrate on here is the drawing is going to do the work for me. That's the most important aspect of it all. Whoa, optical illusion here. Yeah. So far, I mean, a good optical illusion or kind of a strange one here. So it's essential that we get into the whole process of learning how to put together a very simple sketch, even with color. Color is very, very sensitive. That front tire looked like it's a sphere popping out. Yeah, it's a little bit more. Yep, she's turned the corner pretty well there. But I think the illusion we want to create here is just a nice simple gesture with very minimal amount of texture and color, and off it goes from there. And we'll just kind of tune in with a little bit of pastel, a little bit of marker work, bleach it in, and a little bit of drawing definition and get it all wrapped up here. So let's kind of go back in and just got to start blushing in some areas here we want to work with. Let's do this. A bit of that header in place. Seating area. Let's start with a real light stain first. Number 1 cool, very Copic marker. So lay in some of the interior stuff here just to steer it back a little bit. That's a good point there, Chip. I really stressed that turning radius on that tire to kind of move it out and give a little more drawing to and a little more definition to the actual aspect of the tire itself. So yeah, it's a cheated view, but I think it helps reinforce the drama of the sketch itself. So there we are. Let's get this interior component put in here. Come right down the line with a little bit of marker wash. Again, with the number 1 cool gray Copic. Let's stain that in. Come right across this now. Let's kind of put some of the surfaces in place here. Just kind of walk through this guy real nice and loosely. A little more reflective quality into this upper. More graphic into place here. Take it around the corner into that fender brake. Around that little area here, a little bit more highlight. Again, far side across away from the light source. That far side fender. Stain that in just a little bit, and we'll get a little more animated as we go here. I'm just working very quickly with this marker just to kind of get some surface work in. So there's a pretty good start at getting some little bit of a simple stain put together. Now let's drop it in underneath here just a bit, this little negative surface. going to stain it in lightly first. So right up on top here. Let that put aside. Take this right in that body side itself, or that front end graphic. A bit of that, and then take that right across the front end and lose it. A little bit more reflected light back on this side over here. Stop there just for a moment. Let's evaluate what we've got here. Again, real loose. Let's get this. Let's start here very quickly. The lower piece in here. All with a number 1 gray. Cool gray. Just staining it in, getting the surfaces to start to read. Into the fillet, across the chin, and underneath that face right there. Now, let's see what that does. Just slowly but surely staining it in to get it started here. Let's go to number 3 gray. A little more animation underneath there. Just slowly building the shapes. Building the surfaces up just a touch. That shadow of that lamp graphic coming across here. Just a little more of this in here. Away from the light source, just a little bit more tone in here. Some reflective quality across the hood surface. Take it in. And little by little, we're just slowly building up the shapes on this guy. That's how it come together here. Now, last but not least, let's come back in here just for a moment. Let's change the character. A little more of the internal stuff here. Let's go a little deeper with this guy. Just stain this in, give a bit more presence to it. Come back to that in a moment here. We'll kind of keep tuning in this interior trim piece here. Again, notice how all of a sudden, like a lot of the paper come through, just like we showed you in that initial concept sketch in pencil, where it's very critical to keep all that pretty lucid here. Let's do this, let's get this header in place. I want to make sure we drop this out just a touch. Bring this into play here. A bit of that inside pillar. And the screen mask over the windscreen itself, just a touch more detail to that. Let me turn this over just a moment here. Go. Turn the corner and bring it right down in the cowl. Overall, there's a very strong presence of graphics. Notice how we're really starting to play this thing up, dropping some form into it, putting more shape as we go along the way here, and getting some really interesting surface work to deal with here as we go. And one thing I'm going to do, let's get a little bit of color in this guy. Let's get the body marker lamp in place here, so we can start to work through that. Just a touch. There it is. There. What I'm doing with this marker base is just laying a groundwork to put the rest of the surfaces and forms together here. Let's get a little bit of this rearview mirror. Put a little bit of contact in that guy. There it is. So put just little touching pieces here together. So coming along here nicely. Let's go ahead and put this into place. Let me go back to number 3 gray just for a moment here. I'm going to stain this whole lower end, and then begin to separate it out. Just flood this in, working with the light source. A little bit of highlight in here, save a little bit of paper. Stain it in the end. Just keep filling the shape up just a touch. Same thing on this side now. Let's take it over. Run the whole thing through. One more passing down through the base of this, the chin of the spoiler. Now let's kind of build this up just a bit more here. Number 5 grain, let's kind of put a little more tint in this thing. A bit of shadow in here. Again, from dark. A little bit of a light source in there. Same thing on the far side of that module. Put a little bit of dark underneath that chin on the spoiler itself. Let's run that through with a little bit of a reverse here. Little by little, start to come off the page for us here. Turn this upside down just for a moment here. And a little bit of this. And now we'll come back in with that number 3 gray again. A little bolder. Bit of shadow drop in there. Take up the rest of this lower piece. Again, just filling a surface with marker. I'm going to come back over the top of that and really kind of tune it in a lot more drawing definition as we go through the process here. So that goes to that. So what do you think, gang? What's it for? Chip, hey, how you doing there? Others Forever 3 want to become famous by flowers. Anyhow, hey, what do you think so far, Chip? Is it coming along all right for you? Making sense? Little by little, we're getting there. Let's put in the graphics and some of this rear end, this thing here. Let's get this lighting graphic put in place. The whole piece in first, and we'll stain just a little bit to get the shadow to work for us. While we're at it, so we know where the light source is coming from, we just take that same approach, cast a shadow in here on the rearview mirror. And also under the lamp bezel. So there we are. Sorry, put it all together. A little bit of marker base. I think we got a hot chat. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Got some guy in there. Just Others Forever 3. Yeah, I think you're right there. So far, so good, Chipper. Just again, I'm really looking. Let's go back to this pencil sketch. Let's put two together here just for a moment. I can get them on the same screen. Look how one relates to the other. How I'm letting a lot of paper come through. The sketch is the bolder portion. Now the marker, same process, but we're keeping it nice and simple by going in there and really defining what the shapes have to do and look like here. So let's go back in here. Let's tune in just a little more drawing definition here. Tighten this down just a bit more. Get this guy to run. There we are. There it is. Put a hotspot up on top there. Oh, there we go. Now the real fun part is now that I've got the base working here, I'm going to come back in just for a moment. Oh, need a little detail here. One of the great things about the technique here we're working with is that marker, again, it provides a base. I've got a pretty good platform there in terms of what is taking place with the overall. Let's kind of get this line down just a bit more. Pardon me. Turn that in. There it is. There you go. Put a shadow in here with a little bit of pencil work. Then we'll get some marker and pastel back into this thing. I'm going to use that little offset right there as a guide. So there we are. Let's go back in. Let's get this little insert piece put together here. A little deeper. Oh, there we are. There we go. Let's put more shadow in here. A bit more reflected light. Same thing on the far side. Just enough. All of a sudden, other things start to come together here for us here. Now, notice this surface here. I'm going to keep this surface underneath pretty light because that's going to reflect a little bit of ground. But I will come back here with about a number 3 gray and take this surface and tint it just a little bit more away from the light source. Let's go back in and be a little bolder with this thing. Now, follow through and reverse it. Nice light touch here, just to kind of screen it in. A little bit of reverse. And that's exactly what's going to happen underneath it. That surface there is going to be a little bit lighter because, again, it's really facing into the light surface itself. So there we are. Now, let's go back in here. Let's do this. I'm going to scrub in some of these. Let's get some of the real graphics in place now. Little by little, very methodical. Building up the marker first, then we're going to add some of the definition with pastel. Some of the drawing definition there. There. And there. Same thing in the rear wheel. Get that all set. And there's 2. You won't see that one because it's almost hidden back in perspective due to the cant in the actual piece itself of the actual rim, how it steps back a little bit. So there we are, Chip. So far, so good. What do you think about that? Look how much paper again is coming through in that form. Making sense? Is that helping at all or not? Good? Hey, Doug, how are you? How you doing there, Chief? Looking good. Hi, Doug. Good to have you on board. So, again, just following through from yesterday's stream and trying to wrap up some of the things we've done here with some of the material in terms of getting good drawing skills down, letting the paperwork and come through, etc. Now, let's put a little bit of this into it. Now, let's add some of the definition we're looking at here. I'm going to get back in a little bit bold and venturesome here. I'm going to do a little bit of pastel work here, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to change the accent here. Put a bit of a 2-tone system in this guy. Let's come back inside this piece here. And just tint in an area. And take that right into the wheels. Let's take that into the wheels. Now, let's come back in just a bit. Now I'm going to start drawing back into it here. A lot of shadow depth. Just going to build up the surface and slowly wash it out of there. What do you think, gang? Look how it's starting to blend together here nicely, just kind of bringing all the pieces together here. That's pretty bright and cheerful. Love the negative entirety. Yeah, me too. All right, let's go let's go a little deeper here. I put that shadow in place here. Really accentuate. That's a little bit of a channel in there. A little bit of highlight change here. I'm using the pastel now to complement the marker to put a little more detail in this piece. Run it right through and begin to lose it. Now, look what happens. Look at the definition in that. Let me get a little bit of some eraser work here. We'll come back out of that. Clean that up just a bit. How about that, gang? It's starting to come together now. Think how that just kind of separates those two shapes. Now, to complement that, let's make sure we get a little bit more of this and just kind of bring that a little bit more up on top here. Just a little bit more touch. Use that marker underneath as a base. Let's come back in and get that highlight back. Using the eraser to just set up a pattern. And come back up. And let's get this brush here for a moment. And we'll retune this whole thing. There we are. Now we're going to come back in and just blend. Soften it off again. And again, a little bit more eraser. Blend it out. And come back in and blend it back in. Use again the eraser to get that highlight over the wheel well. And there I am there. And just a bit more touch in this guy here. Down below. There you go. Okay, look, it's beginning to happen to that form. Coming together now. There it is. Bright and cheerful. There we go. Just some note, trying to check on the information there that we're working with. So let me know what you think there, gang. Coming along all right? Let's just put a little bit more of this. Just a little bit of a change of pace up on top here. Let's get a little bit of sky in this guy. Come across there. Get a little bit of that into the hood, the upper itself. A bit of sky pattern on top of this thing. Yeah, let's get these rims all set up here. And again, pastel. Just wash it in. All of a sudden, look how that thing just starting to come together. Making sense, gang? Let's put a little bit of this underneath here. Back to a little bit of a highlight piece. Across that chin. A little more tint underneath here to get that reflective quality we're talking about. In the ground. A bit of extended shadow. In the shadow, all of a sudden, look at that. What do you think, gang? Coming together now? There it is. It's gotten a lot darker. Oh, yeah, all of a sudden it's got a lot darker. True, because I want to get a contrast change here, Chip. Like a paint scheme difference in that little insert piece here. Just going to go back in through here and get some of that cleaned up just a bit. Let's go a little bit of highlight in through here. Let's get some of that to come out just a touch. shadow definition in there. See what we're doing? We're doing that little wheel blister roll in there and to find what that shape is doing now. A little more reflected light down below. There it is. Okay, let's just kind of blend this just a bit more. So we soften it off just a touch more. All of a sudden, make a little more contour in this thing. Now let's get some more definition up on top of this rim. A little deeper. Again, a lot deeper. A little bit of black added. Really tone this thing in. We'll come back at it here in just a moment. Let's put this in place here. And the glass. And the glass. Little by little. What do you think, gang? Coming along all right? It's got a lot more. It's a little bit more content to it now. Let's see. It's got. Oh yeah, there you go. I knew you know. There it is. So a little bit more detail into the same. Let's kind of clean up some of the excess here of the pastel. We're getting a lot of what I'm trying to illustrate here is how that combination of working with, for example, with marker as a base, and let that pastel come over the top and really begin to work with this thing. Let's get a little more highlight across this edge here. More reflection inside the glass on this fender edge. Hey, Starship, how are you? Good to have you on board, man. How have you been? I've been thinking an awful lot about you the last few days. I really hope you're well. Let's kind of clean this whole thing up here. A little bit more definition in that front end, so it gets a lot more reflected light, so it just changes up just a bit. There it is, and there. More glow to it. That's more better. Now it's back inside here just a touch. Just kind of soften it off just a bit more. Run that through. Put a little more of this, just a little more pastel underneath here, just to kind of grade off just a bit. Let's go back in and get this, really begin to accentuate this guy here. A bit of shadow inside that vacuole. Now, there we are. It's starting to come together. Let's come back in through here. A little bit of highlight to work for us. Again, working on an eraser, little by little. There it is, gang, coming together. All right, look at that. There it is, just a nice simple study and just getting those forms together. Get them to read just a bit more, a little bit more powerful within to it. And again, a lot of the paper coming through here. It's gonna, this gets to get down to its touch here. And for what it's worth here, just come back in. Let me grab a study here. Nice old fashioned. White pencil. Start to draw a little bit more definition in here now. Let's get a little more of this surface going across the top of the actual piece here. A little more shadow. There you are. Yeah, it's got a nice graphic pull right off of this thing here. There we are. All of a sudden, there she is, starting to come together here again. There it is. A little bit more. Let's soften that off just a bit there, so it's not so bold. So I'm coming off of that shape. There it is. And little by little, it's starting to come to life here. I think there's a lot more definition in terms of the drawing side of life here. Let's come back in here and just kind of pick up some. What's that little bit of that marker here is? If I can find that, oh, here it is. More graphics inside this guy. I'm going to come back in and put a little more drawing definition in through here. Let's come back in a little bit more white pencil here. Pardon me as I sharpen the stick a little bit. A little wine white change in here now. Turn this upside down for a moment here, gang. Sorry. A little bit more drawing definition. Draw, draw, draw. Check this upside down here for a moment. More shadow off of this little vacuole coming in off of the light source here. More definition in this guy. More believability. Right across the shape. Into the radius. Same thing over on this side. Just a bit more touch into that. A bit of drawing weight on this guy. Let's put some punch in this beauty.
I can tell you, we've heard more failures.
Let's get this guy. And one last touch. A bit of reflection up underneath it. And a little bit of tone underneath this guy around me here, yeah. It's a bit of shadow in this thing. That's better. A little more impact in this guy too. More reflection in the glass along the cowl in this quarter area here. Little finishing touches now, just kind of finishing out some of the surface work. And for what it's worth, there it is, gang, all wrapped up. What do you think? See what your input is here. Let me get some of this cleaned up just a bit here. We'll kind of look at it here. A little bit of a signature piece. Get it all set up. And notice, even though we were discussing some of the points earlier about this whole concept of letting the paper come through. Let me just show you just a moment here. Let me get this out of the way. Clean this up just a bit here. Okay, give me some room to work with here. Put that out of the way. Get that down on the side. And there we are. All right. What I wanted to really illustrate here, notice again, even though there's an awful lot of fill in there, there's an awful lot of paper still coming through in the actual shape itself. Hey, Nemo, good to have you on board. Yeah, this is looking nice. All them highlights. Yeah, just it. Good to have you on board, Captain Nemo. How's everything going? Pretty good? Just without the shadow beneath the front wheel. It looks back and forth between concave and convex and perception. Yeah, it does go back and forth just a little bit. But again, I just want to leave a little bit more to the mystery in terms of putting together some of the surfaces we're working with here. To kind of get it all, so it's not all clued in or locked in. We're highlighting this guy. Let's do that. That's that. Let's get this down along that base. Let's put a little more hotspot right in here. One more pass into this guy. Just a touch more. There we are. There we go. Just simple little touches like that, gang. And there it is. And there's a pretty good explanation about. Let me just tighten this down just a bit more too. And the importance of letting the paper do an awful lot of the work. And there it is. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. There it is. And there's the actual pencil sketch we did earlier. So we can get them up there on the screen side by side or close to one another. So let's see what this does here. There's the actual, no, not much here. There it is. There's the pencil sketch itself with a lot of paper coming through. And again, notice what I did with the color study is the same basic operation. Even though some pastel fill in there, there's still a lot of paper left to kind of work through the shape and get it to read. So these are the things that they are really critical to deal with here, just to kind of just give it a little bit of a presence. So with all that said here, let's kind of do one last thing, give a more line weight in this upper, where the pillars are. That just about takes it all the way into pretty good finality here, putting together that little final study on SUVs and just taking it from a series of concept sketches over the last couple of days and then into some very interesting things, just very simple approach at taking color and how to work with it as a base. For example, when we started, notice we just put a lot of stain in with a marker and then use the pastel to kind of fill it. We can get rid of that too as far as moving it into more of a cleaner approach to getting the rendering to read, and yet still maintain the fact that still a lot of paper is coming through. We're not really blocking it up, just a lot of marker base underneath, a little bit of marker on the far side of the fenders, and a lot of pastel insert pieces to kind of get this thing to read. So there we are, folks. Hope that makes some sense for you. And any questions at all or conclusions here? Any commentary? Yeah, that's good. Hey, thanks, Chip. Yeah, again, it's a little bit of a different study. I want to go back into a bit of a difference here in terms of a lighter body, lighter hood, lighter quarter panel, and a little bit darker insert paint scheme change there. We can actually make that a little bit more prominent by coming back and add a little more of this. Maybe it's some of this, just to kind of soften this off a bit more. There you go. I might have to solidify the fact that we've got a bit of a value change in there from one surface to another. So it's more of a silver to charcoal little body insert piece and maybe a texture change or material change in the front door and then the rear quarter. So that's it. How about you, Captain Nemo? Doing pretty good? Does that make sense for you? There it is. A little three-quarter front study of a SUV. And Doug, if you're still there, what do you think? Overall, thumbs up, thumbs down. Pretty good little exercise there and putting it all together today. So I just want to wrap it up with this, but I feel I'm repeating. No, you're not repeating yourself. It's good to have you on board. It doesn't get more true if you say it too, but I do. I hope that's the case. And again, I really enjoy having you guys on board here today. This is a very brief session. I just want to take the time to go from pencil into color, take a little bit of a step further, and do a little bit of detail work with this guy. And I think you've done a nice job of staying with it here, so I really appreciate it. Any commentary at all, please feel free to visit my website, drcontrast.com. Just really looking forward to getting some feedback from you guys on what we should be doing here, future reference. If you have any things you want me to cover or discuss in the future, boy, by all means, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do all I can to help you there. Hey, Doug, thanks very much. Just a very simple color study. Again, so critical to think in terms of what starts it all. Let me just go back for a moment here. What starts it all is a really good, solid line drawing. And at this perspective really makes, even though, like Chip, you brought up a good point early on about the fact that wheel's really rotated. Yeah, I want to really over dramatize that stance and then take the rest of it back in perspective, a little bit more dynamic to it. So that's the reason we're turning that wheel such a bit, so it's almost round at us, almost full circle at us. So two things to work from this whole week. We started on Tuesday with some concept sketches on the SUV platform. The importance of two things. Number one, getting into a one-box system, which this is, a one-box, leading edge, everything's carved out of that. Secondly, getting that wheel plan set by getting the proportions of the wheelbase down. So you've got one wheel in, 1, 2, 3, 4 back, because that gives you a pretty good stance. Once you have those two things going for you, everything else sets up very, very nicely and richly. So once again, gang, thanks so much for taking the time here today. Visit my website at drcontrast.com. And if there's something you want me to cover or look at or work with you on, by all means, let me know. I'd love to just share some thoughts with you on some of those things. I can be reached at jim@drcontrast.com. And once again, really take the moment to hear us thank you for the time spent today. Nice little touch here to go with the final wrap up. Next week we're going to do some exciting things. We might change some venue here and get a little more some exploratory sketches and haven't picked the theme yet, but we'll get there. Thanks again, Chip and Captain Nemo. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Doug, and everybody for joining forces today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and please feel free to join me next Tuesday when we start at 2:30 again. We'll go through a series of different exercises, and I will sign off with this because I think it's the most important part of the stream altogether. No question about it, folks. Never forget to remember to dare be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day and all the very best. Thank you. Bye-bye.